We are at war with Russia.
We're at war with Russia! If for some reason you thought the histrionic screeching of 10,000 gender studies majors would lessen as time moved away from Donald Trump's historic victory over Hillary Clinton, you, much like me, were dead wrong. And nothing crystallizes this realization more than the latest baboon-screeching shit-throwing session the media has had in relation to the Russian hacking of the election.
Do you believe that Russia tried to interfere, get involved with the election process?
Vladimir Putin not only sanctioned the hacking of Democrats, but that he actually participated, or that he was the driving force behind it.
But I tell you, having worked in the CIA, if we had been caught interfering in European elections or Asian elections or anywhere in the world, those countries would call for new elections.
Other than being one of the most ridiculous attempts at a James Bond franchise reboot I have ever seen, this is a clear and present example of the media's general leftist hypocrisy. CNN. No, the presidential election can't be hacked.
A few moments later.
CNN. Where's the outrage over Russia's hack of the U.S. election?
We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup.
By the way this sniveling little Nancy boy talks, you would expect that Russia actually hacked into the election results, flipping votes from Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump. But that's not true. In fact, the only evidence we have of any election night fraud is the massive Democrat voter fraud in Detroit, where some of Hillary Clinton's votes were overcounted up to 6 times. But no, what Russia did was much more insidious. Russia hacked into the DNC and into John Podesta's emails and told us the truth about the disease of corruption in Hillary Clinton's campaign effort. Now, I'm not going to deny that Russia hacked the DNC, although I'd like to point out that the evidence presented to us has been wholly lacking in any kind of veracity. But if I'm perfectly honest, I don't think it matters who hacked the DNC. What they told us was the truth. But the entire leftist media establishment is freaking out because they don't like that the voters were very well informed about their own disgusting moral corruption.
New York Times, all these people, all these left-wing places, for the past few weeks and months have been saying, don't listen to fake news. There's no evidence. There's no proof of this, which is fine to say. But the moment this 35-page document, unverified, anonymous, by anonymous sources of the anonymous person comes out, oh, this is real. Let's talk about this. Fuck Trump. Anytime they want to say, if it's against Trump, fine. Hillary, don't know, it's fake news. What kind of journalist integrity is this at all? And so this has been circulating, this document, for weeks, right? But no one wanted to post the story. Why? Because there's no evidence. Anyone who did any investigating on the source of this document found nothing. There was no proof. It was just a circulated document. But not. What the and then CNN, New York Times, everyone followed suit and started releasing this like it's real news after bashing fake news for the exact same type of reason. The hypocrisy is, the left is brilliant in this. They spout out all these things and then do the things right after. It's hilarious. Make up your own mind. If you don't like Trump, then you'll probably believe this rumor. And if you don't, then you probably won't believe this rumor. This is journalism today. Bravo.
That should be asked is, did Donald Trump or any of his associates in the campaign collude with Russia in hacking those emails and releasing them to the public? That's where we started 6 months ago. We have now heard from 6 of the 8 Democrats on this committee. And to my knowledge, I don't think a single one of them asked that question. They've gone down lots of other rabbit trails, but not that question. That is because Jim Comey said last week, as he said to Donald Trump, that on 3 times he assured him he was not under investigation. Maybe it's because multiple Democrats on this committee have stated they have seen no evidence thus far after 6 months of our investigation and 11 months of an FBI investigation of any such collusion. I would just suggest, what do we think happened at the Mayflower? Mr. Sessions, are you familiar? Do you like spy fiction?
Just finished Ignatius's book.
Do you like Jason Bourne or James Bond movies?
No. Yes. I do.
Have you ever, in any of these fantastical situations, heard of a plot line so ridiculous that a sitting United States senator and an ambassador of a foreign government colluded at an open setting with hundreds of other people to pull off the greatest caper in the history of espionage?
Thank you for saying that, Senator Cotton. It's just like through the looking glass. I mean, what is this? I explained how, in good faith, I said I had not met with Russians because they were suggesting I, as a surrogate, had been meeting continuously with Russians. I said I didn't meet with them. And now, the next thing you know, I'm accused of some reception, plotting some sort of influence campaign for the American election. It's just beyond my capability to
any kind of intelligence.
Carl, you've been involved in classified information. You are a Navy SEAL. You fought for this country. When you hear that that information is highly classified, has been handed over to Russian diplomats in the Oval Office, classified information that was so sensitive it hasn't even been widely seen within the U.S. government, let alone allies.
Right. So I'm sitting here very quietly listening to all this BS, quite frankly. And did you listen to anything McMaster said today where he said, I was in the room, that didn't happen, nothing inappropriate was shared? You're basing all these allegations off of one or maybe two sources, which CNN reports. Two former officials knowledgeable of the situation confirmed to CNN the main points of the story. Two former officials. Tell you what, come out, name those people, then we'll have something to talk about.
One, we protect sources. Two, it's not just CNN. It's Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC,
yeah, but who
NBC.
are the sources?
Carl.
Who are the sources? Oh, because they're hiding behind this anonymity.
Oh,
and that's what we're seeing.
Please, do not even start with me that you're just going to attack sources.
Okay, so
that
what
is
about,
ridiculous.
so are you saying McMaster is lying?
I'm not saying McMaster is lying.
Well, he didn't really answer the question.
He didn't answer the question.
He said nothing inappropriate was shared.
No, that's his opinion.
That would be.
But that's his opinion.
You cannot say, you cannot attack.
Yeah.
Do not attack the stellar reporters of CNN who have their sources and would protect their sources.
Stellar reporters of CNN that I am going to attack right now and say, guess what? I don't believe them because they're staying anonymous. If they stand behind this story, come out, face the camera.
Can I just say something?
Be skeptical, says the retired Navy SEAL. Be quiet, screams the 33-year-old news anchor, clapping her hands in rage. How dare you question the authorities, in this case the news media? Quote, you cannot attack the stellar reporters of CNN, she says, as if this settles the debate. A lot of what you hear and accept uncritically, you ought to question. Take the Russians, for example. Just a few years ago, the Russians were considered harmless, toothless, drunken, and anyone who suggested otherwise was considered a holdover from the Cold War. Now, the Russians are considered evil, in fact, our most dastardly enemy, and anyone who questions that is probably a tool of Vladimir Putin and therefore a traitor to our country.
I want to know, Stuart, is where was the Democrats back in 2012 when Mitt Romney was talking about Russia? They made fun of him. The media made fun of him. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to stop what we're doing and say the Russians are going to take over America and Donald Trump is a double agent for Russia.
You're not smiling now, but it seems to me that the response of the left to this whole story about the Russians and emails and hacking and all the rest of it, it verges on hysteria, and it's personal. In nature, it is personal. I feel that they loathe President Trump. How about you?
I feel like they loathe him, but they also are straight up lying. We've heard a lot of them with reports, and the media, of course, say, hey, the FBI director was requesting more resources. The acting FBI director said that's not true. Donald Trump is under investigation when it's really the campaign, but it's not Donald Trump. That was confirmed. So we're seeing a lot of rhetoric back and forth, but it's not the truth.
You've also, so just to be clear, we don't really have hard evidence yet whether this warrant exists. It may or it may not. There is some doubt about the evidence. There's lots of claims. Whether there's evidence about Mr. Trump and the Russians is another matter. And you've also claimed that President Putin had Andrew Breitbart murdered to pave the way for Steve Bannon. This was the man who founded the Breitbart website, to pave the way for Steve Bannon to play a key role in the Trump administration. You then said that Mr. Bannon is behind bomb threats to Jewish community centers. I mean, aren't you in danger of just peddling wild conspiracy theories?
No, first of all, I haven't. And no matter how many times people say this, it's not going to be true. I said on Twitter in a tweet, I believe that to be the case about the murder of Andrew Breitbart.
Well, that's what I just said.
But
you
it's not a piece of... It's not... No,
you
no, I
believe
didn't.
President
No,
Putin
I
murdered
didn't.
him, don't you?
Andrew, I said, I believe it. You said I reported it. Those are two completely different things.
Well, you put it out on Twitter. You said you believed it, and you don't have a shred of evidence.
I do. And indeed, I made no... I made
What's
no
the
assertion.
evidence that
I said
Mr.
what I
Putin
believe.
murdered
There is
Mr.
a difference.
Breitbart? What's the evidence?
I said I believe it. I didn't say...
Look, you may believe
Andrew,
there are fairies
Andrew.
at the bottom of your garden. It doesn't make it true.
I may indeed, and if I say so, then that's my belief. If I say I am reporting, as I did with the FISA warrant, that a FISA warrant exists, you may rest assured that I have a basis in fact for a report. A belief is just a belief.
So let
when
me just
I can
get the
sustain
working...
it, I will report upon
Sure.
it.
No, look, I know you're relatively new to journalism, so let me just get the rules right. If it's Twitter...
Oh, Andrew, jealousy is, greed is not your colour, Andrew.
If it's Twitter, we don't believe it, but if it's on your website, we should believe it. If you want to be a journalist, beliefs have to be backed up with some evidence.
Really? What, do you have a faith?
Well, it's not a matter of faith, or maybe in your case, that President Putin murdered Andrew Breitbart. You've said in today's Sunday Times here in London that you've turned into, I quote your words, that you're a temporary superpower, where you, quote, see things really clearly. I mean, have you become delusional?
No. They have ADHD. They can have a condition called hyperfocus, which means that you concentrate very hard on a given subject and you can see patterns and connections. That's biological, and I don't resile from it for a moment.
All right, thank you for explaining that. Louise mentioned for getting up early in New York. You are the first time ever I've interviewed a temporary superpower. Thank you for that.
You're so lucky. You're so
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen again.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the impeccable source. This is also the woman who was exposed in WikiLeaks emails, the John Podesta emails, as being a Hillary Clinton sycophant. This is out of Breitbart. WikiLeaks, anti-SJW Heat Street founder Louise Mensch, she poses as a conservative, she's a never-Trumper, pitched ad script to Hillary Clinton campaign. And it goes through and quotes the email where she prostrates herself and genuflects to Podesta, to the Hillary Clinton campaign, begging to allow her to write this feminist Hillary Clinton ad. This is the source of the FBI's investigation into these claims.
Folks, midsummer, and despite the full court press and alt-left obsession with Russia, there's still no freaking evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Yes, despite almost daily anonymous leaks to the leftist Trump-hating media, we still have no evidence. So this feeding frenzy is based on what? Persons associated with the campaign had contacts with Russians, and Trump didn't attack Putin harshly enough during the campaign in hopes of improving relations? Well, shit, that sounds like a whole lot of nothing. Did the Russians want Trump to win the election over Hillary? Maybe. And so did the millions of Trump-supporting Americans who voted for him in a fair and free election. Get the hell over it. What more do you want? The American people didn't elect Hillary Clinton because the American people didn't want Hillary Clinton to be president. Got it? This isn't an investigation, it's a witch hunt. They call it an independent investigation? Bull. Only in Washington could a rigged game like this be called independent. First, FBI Director Comey leaks info to the press, all to start an investigation. Then his good friend and former boss, Robert Mueller, is chosen to direct it. Convenient. And who does he select to help? 4 top lawyers who also happen to be Obama, Hillary, and DNC donors. One of them even worked for the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, and who is the star witness? The freaking leaker himself, James Comey. Independent? Yeah, independent my ass. Meanwhile, President Trump is out rallying the American people, supporting law enforcement, speaking to us, putting America and Americans first. Keep crying, Democrats and bitter fake news anchors. It's going to be a rough 4 or more like 8 years for you, but those are just my final thoughts.
Russia scum! We're beholden to scum! Russian scum!
Never-ending story. Documents claimed by those at BuzzFeed. Prostitutes, they just like to pee. Turn on BuzzFeed and CNN. They ran the story anyway. Their Trump and Russia never-ending story. Trump and Russia story. Fake story.
Open borders, now we can talk about Putin. I don't know Putin. He said nice things about me. If we got along well, that would be good. If Russia and the United States got along well and went after ISIS, that would be good. He has no respect for her. He has no respect for our president. And I'll tell you what, we're in very serious trouble because we have a country with tremendous numbers of nuclear warheads, 1,800, by the way, where they expanded and we didn't. 1,800 nuclear warheads. And she's playing chicken. Look, Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit that the Russian.
Exhibit A for Mrs. Clinton, uranium. You know, the stuff we use for nuclear energy and bombs. You might imagine it's a hot commodity. And guess who has a fair amount of it? We do. The United States of America. But thanks to a deal approved in part by Mrs. Clinton's State Department, we no longer control at least 1/5 of our capacity, perhaps more. Instead, the Russians do. That's uranium inside the United States, and its new owner is a Russian company called Uranium One that's owned by Russia's nuclear agency. So why would the U.S. allow Russia to take control of so much American uranium? Good question. And some lawmakers asked it and objected to this deal at the time, saying, why would we do this? But in June of 2010, the Obama administration signed off. Not just Mrs. Clinton, but it included her. It was a committee. That same month, Bill Clinton suddenly received a $500,000 speaking gig in Moscow by a Russian bank that wanted this deal and badly. And the company that took control of so much of America's uranium, well, they were big Clinton fans, donating at least $2.35 million to the Clinton Global Initiative from 2009 to 2012. Donations, as it turns out, the Clinton charity did not disclose. In fact, the donations were only unearthed after Clinton cash author Peter Schweitzer dug up tax records of a foreign foundation up in Canada that happened to show these payments to the Clinton charity. And in the end, with the deal signed off on by Secretary Clinton, we are looking at real questions about whether the United States of America is now sending American uranium through Russia onto Iran.
We must be tough, we must be strong, and we must be vigilant. The NATO of the future must include a great focus on terrorism and immigration, as well as threats from Russia and on NATO's eastern and southern borders. These grave security concerns are the same reason that I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations.
There is the potential, I believe, that Putin has unleashed forces that he will be personally unable to control. It is very, very hard to pull back from some of the statements he's made about the West. And I think that right now there are people questioning, is Putin gone crazy? Is he delusional? And I think that what we have to look at is that we have a Russia problem, not just a Putin problem. People say when Putin leaves, it'll all get better. I think that's a pipe dream at this point. That means Russia's going to be in a position where it cannot sustain its influence over its maritime and geographic borders at some time in the future. And they're now trapped, looking at NATO as a threat. They do not see having democratic nations on their borders as a good thing. They want security through instability. At the same time, there's a nuclear context to this. They've threatened Warsaw and Danish warships with nuclear strikes. And there's been Russian nuclear-capable bombers as far down as along the California coast. They're up alongside Scotland. They're outside Norway. And this is not an insignificant problem. What happened in Crimea and the Ukraine is war. You can call it whatever you want, but it is war. They may do it in a way that makes it deniable so they don't trigger Article 5, but Putin goes to bed at night knowing he can break all the rules and the West will try to follow the rules. That is a very dangerous dichotomy in the way the world is being.
Obama first said, quote, "On all these issues, but particularly missile defense, this can be solved, but it's important for him," meaning Putin, "to give me space." Then came this.
My last election, yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
And I have more flexibility, our president said. Well, Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution defines treason as adhering to our enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Article 2, Section 4 says treason is cause for impeachment. The missile defense system, by the way, they're talking about, protects our allies in Europe and Israel against rogue state launches from, let's say, hypothetically, Iran. Stephen, frankly, is my mention of treason and impeachment just sensationalism, or is it worth exploring what our commander-in-chief is telling the leader of another nuclear superpower when he thinks no one will hear?
I'm going to do my very best to be calm about this, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my mind. What we saw here was the President of the United States negotiating with a representative of our archenemy. Every American soldier who's been killed in the last 50, 60 years has died at the hands of AK-47s and Soviet weaponry. They're supplying arms to Iran. They're supplying nuclear materials to Iran. They're helping Syria, so on. And so we know who the Russians are. The President of the United States said to the Russian president, if you will not do anything that will embarrass me, if you will give me space, if you will just basically be quiet until after the election, when all these pesky Republican, when I say Republican, I mean the constraints of a republic, are finished, then I'll have the freedom to give away the farm, which is exactly what he said. When I saw this, I was outraged, and then I was filled with a genuine sadness that I saw such a thing. But Scotty, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The story is not the president selling out this country to our enemy on camera. The story is that everybody sees it, everybody knows what it is, and it's not a news story. It's just an open mic. It's a flub. So, that's what happens when a mic is on. It's a weekend news dump. There's not going to be any consequences. The entire definition of treason is very clear, but there is no treason anymore. Nobody gives a damn. There's no Constitution anymore. There's no constraints anymore. There's no First Amendment. There's no Fifth Amendment. It's all gone, and we do nothing. We do nothing. Nothing.
It has like an ethical, but all the nice cutesy little ethics that used to get talked about in journalism school, you're just like, that's adorable. That's adorable.
You think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit?
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof. But then they say, well, there's still an investigation going on. And you're like, yeah. I don't know. If you were finding something, we'd know about it. The way these leaks, they'd leak it. It'd leak.
It would leak.
If it was something really good, it would leak.
If it was something really good, it would leak.
Keep leaking, and there's so many great leaks, and it's amazing, and I just refuse to believe that if they had something really good like that, that wouldn't leak, because we've been getting all these other leaks. So I just feel like they don't really have it, but they want to keep digging. And so I think the president is probably right to say, like, look, you are witch hunting me. Like,
the president's
you
right.
have no smoking gun. You have no real.
No.
Other presidents tried to say nice things about the Russians and other, warm things in their heart and they love, not in the face of an active attack on the country.
Hey, man.
The Russian thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
Yeah.
Then why is CNN constantly like, Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
I would encourage everybody in this room and, frankly, everybody across the country to take a look at it.
Give us a question. I'm not going to give you a question. Can you stay categorically? You are fake news. Sir. Go.
Keep the heads ringing. Keep the heads ringing.
Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate. You're fired.
Keep the motherfucking heads ringing. Yeah. I keep the